Sorry, I think we're waiting for one more guest to come in. Welcome everybody, and we're excited to see all the kids here today to have all the kids here today to do their presentations for us. I hope you enjoy them as much as we do. They put an awful lot of thought and an awful lot of hard work into presenting to us what they bring us every year. God bless you.
So sorry.
That's okay. You need to be sorry. It happens. We're gonna wait for our, I don't know if he's coming in, he's coming in for the first group or the second. I don't know if he needs to point out yet, you know, how big is the first group or the second group. I need to see this thing now. Give us 1 second and we're gonna start. Oh. What? Oh. For us? Yes. Oh, this is from them. At this time, I'm going to let Ms. Riley introduce group number 1, who's going to do their presentation for us in regard to their classrooms here.
Good evening, everyone, and please join me in welcoming Ms. Chalinor, our GW's very own teacher, and her students who will be sharing their thoughts regarding flexible seating in their classroom. These students have decided to put their math skills to good use by creating a more conducive classroom environment that supports learning through flexible seating. Students have the opportunity to calculate the space available in their classroom by using their knowledge of perimeter and area, coupled with their knowledge of decimals and money, to create a cost-effective and inviting space that was designed to promote deeper engagement and a joyful learning space. So here is Ms. Chalinor and her students to tell you more about it.
We are so honored to attend a Westminster Board School District meeting. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedules to come and listen to our ideas and valid reasons why we should receive the flexible seating item.
We are creative, imaginative, and innovative throughout the process.
We have a voice, and thank you for caring about what we have to say. This is what you call thinking interdependently as we all work together.
We are hoping to get a yes from Mr. Joe Press and
My name is Isaac.
our vision such as bone furniture and seating is important because it can study more efficiently and get more ideas.
The item I chose is a nutrients. We only asked for 1 weekend, which is $300 and $69.99. The chair is large, so we only request 1.
One reason why I picked this item is because I felt like it could help us in learning. It has a comfortable back. It can help us concentrate better as we can do it.
Thank you for listening to our speech presentation.
My name is Ethan Jones of Town. Having different types of bundle furniture and seating is important because we can focus by sitting, staying still, and being amazing. One reason why I picked this item is because it can help me learn better because it helps me move my body in a safe way so that I can focus better.
Vasquez.
Hello, my name is Edwin Zapala.
Having different types of journal, sitting, and finishers is important because it can help us how it is made. And it can also save us time because how we organize our materials.
The first item that I chose is the TV stool. You can move the stool around the classroom. You can sit on the stool or use it to put your device on. One TV stool is $159.99. We think this is a very useful item because of its ability to move around the room easily and store the materials. We are asking for 5 TV stools, which is $799.95. But if you want to round it to the nearest hundred, you can say $800.
The item that I chose is the mobile STEM station. One reason why I picked this item is because it will help us, helping our teachers to find their materials faster. One station is $2,976.99. That's for 2 stations to help our room be more organized for math and science. The final cost is $595.90. Thank you for your time, and it is an honor to be here.
Hello, my name is Having different types of dorm room furniture and seating is important because it is easier to move around so you can see better. The item of this is allowed from one traditional continent 44 rounded to nation. We are asking for focus participation as they connect into the new technical skills. The total cost is $4,499. One reason why I picked this item is because 4 people can learn together and then in the middle piece is the put our learning activity. Thank you for your time.
The item I chose is the mobile market. On board $257.91. We only need 1 because 2 people can use it. One is 56 computers on one side, and the signal can be running on the other side. Thank you for doing this. My habit English. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Crystal Calderon. Having different types of dorm room furniture and seating is important because everyone has different types of comfortable seating in the classroom and everyone can be happy and comfortable. The item I chose is the pebble seating. It can connect to the pebble seating and it is big and it is comfortable and students can sit in the way they want. One pebble seat is $1,324.99. We're asking for 2 pebble seating because they can connect and we can use it for many things. The total cost is $2,649.98. These pebble seating are also used on college campuses and we would love to have one in our classroom. One reason why I picked this item is because it's soft and cushiony and comfy and you can sit and do your work. I can tell this will be great in our classroom. Thank you for giving us a chance to make the classroom more fun. This will change the way students learn. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Manuela. The item I choose is wobbly stool. The price of one wobbly stool is $123.99. We are asking for 4 wobbly stools, so we have enough for multiple students to learn in a more comfortable way. The total cost is $495.96. Thank you for the opportunity to listen to our ideas about flexible seating. The new furniture will help us focus and learn better. Also, the classroom is as empty as it was. We all are thankful for it.
My name is Nasai Nelson. Having different types of dorm room furniture and seating is important because if my back hurts, my back hurts sometimes. Also, no one will distract another person. The item I chose is the beanbag high chair. The cost of this item is $92.79. We are asking for 2 beanbag chairs, so 2 students will have the opportunity to learn using this chair at the same time. The total cost is $185.58. Thank you for helping our classroom and learning community. Thank you for listening to our voices.
My name is Samosa Awamono. Having different types of dorm furniture and seating is important because some people are not comfortable in a chair. The item I chose is a lightweight floor rocker. The piece that of the price of the lightweight floor rocker is 185.99 cents. Since we are asking for 2, the total cost is 371.98 cents. It looks comfortable and it can help you do your work better. It's cool. Thank you. Thank you for letting us attend the board meeting and listening to our flexible seating proposal. Receiving these items would help our learning community be a better place. After completing our itemized spreadsheet, our total is $13,335.36. I know it seems like a lot of money, but it is hard to put a price on our education. Thank you for your time and giving us the opportunity to allow our voices to be heard. Have a great evening. We are proud to be a part of your activity.
I want all you guys to do one thing for me. Ready? I want you to look at Mr. Perez and say, please. You guys did a fabulous job. Thank you so much.
Well done. Parents affiliated with those children, you want to leave, now would be the time to, go ahead. It's okay.
Thank you. Great job.
Thank you for coming.
Are you ready? Yeah.
Horns always ready.
We getting broccoli this year or what? You hope so. We're gonna give them 1 minute. Yeah, everybody has some broccoli, that's right. No? You did? Did you bring me some? I just want to read whoever. Ms. Riley, would you like to introduce our next set of guests?
Yes, thank you. I would love to. Thank you to Ms. Challenor and her phenomenal students on a lovely presentation. And now I'd like to welcome the Superintendent Student Advisory Council. These students meet with Mr. Riemann and Central Office Administration on a monthly basis to discuss ways that we can enhance our school community. We discuss all types of topics, ranging from pizza to project-based learning. And these individuals represent their student body from grades 3 through 12. We have some new members and some returning members as well this year. They act as a student voice by providing feedback to us in administration so that we can carefully and thoughtfully plan our budget process throughout the year. So now please join me in welcoming from grade 3, Karen Mathai, Tania Jimenez Delgado, Stefano, Vanilla Vargas, Yvonne Campbell, Julia Jimenera, grade 7, Nicholas Lalonde, grade 8, Victoria Hassan, Mount High School, Brady Havistraw, Nicolette Villas, Rodriguez, and last but certainly not least, in grade 12, Kimberlyn Ballon.
You know kids like pizza, so why don't we add more toppings? Some kids want variety in their pizza. Let's add more toppings with pepperoni, olives, broccoli, spinach, onions, and mushrooms. This also makes it healthier lunch option. Did you know kids like to do activities? Why don't we add more after-school clubs to the mix? Like after-school music events, after-school computer clubs for coding, and after-school STEM clubs. The possibilities are endless. You know kids love research. Why don't we add more equipment? Some kids need more equipment outside to play with. Students need more options and choice for their free time. When you are using equipment, you should share the equipment with people, but always sanitize. Some people are easily distracted. These people need a calm room to focus on their work and to maybe play some soft music and allow students to work or calm down in private.
Good evening. The GW community met and created a survey on Thought Exchange. After we got all the results, each student took the survey and we looked at all the survey results and we noticed that these are the most popular things that people wanted.
The students wanted improved basketball hoops. The students want nets on the hoops and one adjustable hoop that can lower down for students that can't shoot that high. As of now, we don't have any nets and students have been complaining. Nets would be useful sometimes because students have arguments about if the ball hit the hoop. And if you had nets, it would show by making a switch sound. If there were no arguments, then the league words are good game.
Annual phone.
You get extra clickers into your presentation.
Oh,
We're just
Another-
here. There we go.
When it gets hot in classrooms, due to the hot temperatures, it's difficult to concentrate. Kids are sweating and they only focus on cooling down. They use folders as fans and that becomes very distracting to the other students. Because of the heat, kids and teachers can get headaches, feel nauseous, and can be tired or stressed.
Flexible seating is a thing for kids to need. We think it would be beneficial for the education of kids. Personally think that it is fine to have options from your students.
You don't like this. Or maybe you wanted to keep your soft and honest. You can pick. That's what I think I like about flexible seating. For example, research shows that flexible seating can make the blood flow to the brain much better.
There's a few choices for sports at GW, but not everybody likes them.
So I believe GW should have a broader array in before-school sports activities. For instance, we could have basketball, hockey, volleyball, and more. I've heard from other students that they would like more activities because they didn't enjoy the ones that we have right now. Having more before-school sports brings people together, and it's a lot of fun. So we at the middle school made a thought exchange. So a thought exchange is a way to collect feedback from our peers. And we surveyed all our peers, and our peers could rate those thoughts out of 5 stars. And we had 612 thoughts posted and 14,866 rated.
Our 3 big ideas of the survey were more plentiful and variety of food, water in the cafeteria, and more field trips. Another thing that was mentioned was air conditioning, but we recognize that may not be possible.
Some topics from the stock exchange. So what students didn't say was, last year we saw more clubs being requested, but this year there were like much less clubs being requested. So we would like to thank the Board of Education for providing those clubs.
Starting with water in the cafeteria, many students were complaining that juice in the cafeteria is free, but water is not. The water fountains throughout the school provide water, but not every student has a water bottle. Many students were suggesting the district should provide a water bottle for students. For food, many students believe that the food is repetitive and bland, and they want a larger variety of food options and flavors. Another highly mentioned topic was field trips. We recognize that these might not be possible due to the pandemic, but for students felt it should be mentioned.
So the first thing I like to discuss is the structure of the building and meeting items and classes. So we asked a Google form to the school to get the student feedback. And some of the things they mentioned in this category were the locker rooms need to be updated to have more space in them, because especially after like a sports game when there are a lot of people in there, they're very narrow and they're hard to change in when there's a lot of people in there. And also the bathrooms in the locker room are also really small. They only have like 2 stalls in there, so it's hard for like a big team. And also in the classrooms, there should be more outlets, since we all have our own personal Chromebooks now, and there are only 1 or 2 outlets, and they're always in the front of the room. So it's really hard for the students to utilize them. And finally, just some like basic essential items that kids often forget, like pens, pencils, etc. A lot of times just a lack of those items. And a school store would be nice so that kids could buy those items and wouldn't have to like ask the teachers for it.
Hello, it's good to be back, sharing all this information with you guys once again. So to begin, as Brady just said, we had a form for the high school. And one of the questions on the form was, how can we spread information about clubs and sports? Now, at the high school, we have many clubs and sports. And, it gets hard to keep track of them all and to spread information about them. So we asked students what they think the best options would be. And here are the 3 most said options. Firstly, flyers and posters. As you may see in the high school, as you come here, we have many flyers and posters, and it shows the artistic ability of many of our students. So I think having flyers and posters allows us to show the artistic ability and insight of many of our students, at the same time allowing us to spread information as we walk by the hallways, whether it be a lunch period or just getting to your next class. Secondly, social media pages. I know this can be problematic because the idea is that it'd be a bunch of teens running social media pages, and I already know, that doesn't go so well sometimes. But trust me, it'll be good. So the idea is that we get responsible people, use like people to run those social media pages. Obviously, they probably follow the West Hempstead account, maybe on Instagram or something. And since, you know, a large amount of our students use social media such as Instagram or Snapchat, I think it'd be a very good idea to put events, dates, you know, things such as that on those pages. Lastly, we have club members going to certain classes. Now, we have the leaders maybe just the leaders going to different lunch periods, maybe gym classes, just going and presenting their ideas. You know, it's important to have people who know what they're doing talk about what they're doing in a class. So I feel that it'd be important, you know, just to go to every class that they can. Of course, you know, there's class disruption, so you don't want to walk up into a math class and be like, hey, this is our idea. I'm doing geometry. Like, you can't do that. So it'd be during lunch periods, it'd be during gym classes. So, you know, just classes where, you know, you don't do much.
Good evening. Right, so I'll just get right into it. So as we surveyed our students, a big point that many of our students have made within our survey can be the fact that there's like a very clear gap between our students and receiving information upon incoming courses at the high school, as well as courses that already exist that may not have gotten as much attention. With that being said, we collected data in order to seek an effective way in which we could share this information with our students in an easy way. So I'm assuming we're all very much aware that we usually have a curriculum fair annually at the high school, and it usually occurs around 7 p.m. The problem with that is that usually our visitors end up being the parents of our students. That's not, you know, as effective as we would like it to be. So we thought it'd be a great idea if we could incorporate a curriculum fair into the normal school day. Mish kind of mentioned that we don't really do much in gym class, but we do. I swear. I do my exercises, we warm up, right? Okay.
All right.
But wait, we could stop. Okay, we could exercise, but we could incorporate the curriculum fair into our gym periods, and we could do it during our lunch periods as well. That way, it's more guaranteed that our students will receive the information they need to understand what courses they want to take and what courses they don't want to take. And it was also shown in my data that a lot of our students were very keen on the idea of a video presentation. This video presentation would consist of information of incoming courses that we have at the high school, as well as courses that didn't get a lot of attention as we wished it would have. And with that, we could easily upload a link onto our school website, and all of our parents and students have free access to it whenever they'd like. Thank you.
So considering our last 2 years in this environment with the pandemic, a lot of students are really concerned with our style of teaching and how it's really changed up over the past 2 years. It's gone from a drastic traditional teaching and toward more of like a project-based learning. After we administered our survey, the student body mostly asked, why should we just choose one? As you can see with our pie chart on the on both screens, either the both the project-based learning and the lecture or traditional teaching, neither one of those basically didn't really stand a chance when it came to students preferring both. So with project-based learning, it allows students to demonstrate their abilities in a team and show their group skills. And it's also a great way to increase communication among their peers. But with traditional teaching, a lot of students feel it's more short-term. And when I say short-term, with projects, you're usually given at least a week and a half or 2 weeks, and that takes a lot out of the school year in terms of trying to get all the content in. With traditional teaching, you're able to grasp all that information and learn that in a shorter period of time, and still have time at the end of the year to maybe review something before the summer cuts. So I guess my biggest proposals would be to try to allocate funding for both traditional teaching and project-based learning, with let's say, for example, I did take a course about a year and a half ago with AP Capstone where we were researching, and I was only able to research some articles that were only readily available to me. Things like New York Times, you have to pay a subscription. So it would be useful to have some kind of subscription with the school where students are able to access credible articles without having to look for something that was only written in like 10 years ago in 2010. So thank you for your time.
And that concludes our Superintendent Student Advisory Council presentation. We hope that you enjoyed it and you found it very useful. Great job.
Thank you guys, you did a wonderful job. To those of you who are new this year, you guys were fabulous. To those of you returning, you are still fabulous. We thank you. We're working on the broccoli, or we thank you very much for all the time and effort that you put into this. We know that it takes a lot, and we appreciate that you spend a little bit of time each month with central office to discuss these topics. So congratulations, guys, you did fabulous. Everybody in the audience, give them a big round. Take that, Warren. Anybody in the audience who has children in the Students Advisory Council that wants to take them home so they can finish their homework or study, please feel free at this time before we start the rest of the budget presentation. So you are all obviously welcome to stay here and listen to the remainder of the budget. No. Great job. Great job. Great job. Great job.
Great job.
Good job, guys.
See you.
Have a great day, everyone. Thank you.
Yeah.
Wonderful job. Thank you very much.
The second group didn't mention any prices, so.
Frankly, on the pizza, it's probably pretty cheap.
Lost the entire room. Take that personal. Maybe it's just a little.
You should know it today, Joel. Okay, so at this time, we're going to open up the floor to Mr. Press, who I don't think is going to be as fabulous as all of our students, but we're going to let him try. Yeah, certainly not as cute as they were. No offense, sir.
It's a tough act to follow. And two groups of kids, usually it's one. Last week, that's two.
Don't try to make excuses, Joel.
I'm setting the bar low from the beginning. All right. Thank you again for having me here to present part two of our budget, proposed budget for 2023. I am happy and excited to be back once again to talk to you tonight. We're going to talk about instructional categories and revenue. Again, I think once I finish the presentation, you will see, as I stated last week, that the focus of this budget is really on providing opportunities for the students to allow them to grow and thrive here in West Hempstead, and allowing them to pursue their interests through different programs and opportunities throughout the district. So, real quick, the timeline here.
Similar to last week, we're talking about instructional categories, revenue and state aid tonight. We have been in 2 weeks, a kind of a hold on that date in case anything changes really up at the state level in terms of state aid. The governor, with the budget, I doubt our budget will be adopted at the state level by then, but if there are changes, we can come back and talk about that. And then just, all the all-important May 17th date, which is the day of the budget vote, from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. in the middle school. Okay, once again, our proposed budget for 22-23 is approximately $71.4 million. That represents approximately $2.5 million spending increase budget, which is a 3.61% spending increase. That is all supported by a tax levy increase of 2.14%, which, there we go, is within the district's tax cap. Again, some of the challenges we faced in putting the budget together, the 2% tax levy cap, which we'll talk about a little bit later. Again, foundation aid, which has not been fully funded since its inception in 2007-2008 school year. There have been pushes to fully fund the formula. The issue there is the fact that we haven't been fully funded since the inception of foundation aid. Formula means that there's approximately $8 million that we have not received over the last 15 years or so. Additionally, again, this is a repeat from last week. We are subject to any number of unfunded mandates that come down from the state. Many of these are good ideas in theory and in practice, but at the same time, while these are mandates on us, we are not provided with additional financial support every time a new mandate comes down from the state. In terms of our top three, the top three drivers of our spending increase going into next year, retirement system payments are increasing approximately $285,000. The retirement rate, again, this is a mandate that comes down from the state, for TRS has increased from 9.8% to 10.3%, which, while it's a 0.5% increase in their rate, is really a 5% increase on our expenses, all else being equal. There's some increase in their ERS rate as well. Our medical insurance premiums, we got walloped in 2022, calendar year 2022. The average premium increase was 12% for our active employees. We're budgeting for an estimated increase going into calendar year 2023 as well. So we're budgeting there an increase of about $680,000. And the biggest of our challenges that we faced over the last several years, as we talked about last week, is transportation. Our 2021 increase, the actual increase, $1.1 million. We budgeted another increase this year of $1 million, and we are currently on track to exceed that. Unfortunately, so we budgeted another increase of $850,000 going into next year. There's additional information for those who may have missed the presentation on this. Last year, we went into a little bit more detail. I think the largest driver of this increase is the fact that we are not seeing competitive bidding in the transportation process on Long Island. It is not just us, but the fact that we transport so many kids and so many kids out of district, that has caused a lot of our expenses to kind of go up quite substantially. Any questions so far? Anything I've talked about? A lot of that was recap from last week. So this is our consolidated budget. It's the entire budget, just broken down into functional budget focus groups. So tonight we're going to talk about the 2000 codes. Those are all the instructional codes. I do want to point out the 2070 code is a new code this year. It's a code that's been in existence. What we're doing is we're implementing the use of that code. That's a staff development code. These codes are actually dictated by the comptroller's office. 2070 is the code for professional development, essentially. So what you'll see as we go forward is we're moving a lot of the expenses that were in the 2010 code into 2070. This is really to help us with our transparency reporting at both the state level and the federal level. So as I go through, what I'm going to do is, what I've done is sort of been my usual MO is I'm going to talk about the codes here. where there are changes that I feel are significant enough to mention, feel free to ask me about any of the codes. If there's something I don't touch on, just feel free to stop. So here, again, 2010, there's a decrease there. The majority of that is moving those expenses out of 2010 into 2017. If you look at the 2017 line, we've got no expenses shown for the last 3 years. We're just moving the expenses for professional development into that code. Regular school, our 2110, that's our largest single function code item. That is where the general education program is housed, and the salaries for those vast majority of our teachers are gen ed teachers. Not much of an increase there this year, much lower than usual. It's about a 0.8% increase. Last year it was about twice that. The large reason for that is we had a number of staff retirements, number of teacher retirements going into next year. So we were able to recognize fairly substantial savings as a result of that. There are some increases within the code itself. Our charter school enrollment has been growing incrementally over the last few years. We are mandated by state to pay tuition to charter schools when kids go there. So as our enrollment in charter schools has increased, our expense has gone up as well. Any questions on this slide? Our next slide here, special ed, the 2250 code. I'm actually very excited. Bridget will be happy. There she is. I don't have to throw Bridget under the bus this year, as I've done in the past. That code actually is decreasing going into next year, largely because we're seeing a decrease in the enrollment of students in out-of-district placements, both public and private. And BOCES as well, we're not seeing the increase. There's an increase in the tuition for BOCES, but I think we're seeing a little bit of decrease in the enrollment in BOCES. We had some students, students graduate, they age out, they leave the district, and so we are seeing that code is essentially flat this year after about $1 million increase last year in that code. Additionally, you can see in this code, there's a number of salaries. We moved some salaries out of the general fund into our special ed grants, and then we moved some stuff back into the general fund from the special ed grants. The special ed grants, there's a requirement that we actually provide a certain number of services to the non-public schools within the district. So we kind of moved some things around, so the funding for the staff members that work at Hank are covered in this grant. So there's just some movement around of salaries there. Any questions about the 2250? Largely flat in these other codes. 2610 is our school library code. Decrease there as we had a retirement. Librarian retired, and so we budgeted for that replacement of that person at a lower salary than the retiree. We also had budgeted for the purchase of a number of library books to replenish some of the libraries this year, 21-22, that we no longer need to budget for in 22-23. Any questions on any of that?
With the school library budget, does it include any new subscriptions that, like was mentioned by the student council, New York Times, any other learning subscriptions for students?
There are, I will speak to this as best I can. If there's anyone else out here who can answer that. We do have subscriptions. The New York Times is a subscription at the high school. I believe it's a print subscription, if I'm correct.
We're actually moving from the print into more digital.
Okay.
Right.
We can actually find more savings in that.
Mm-hmm.
If I remember correctly, there was a subscription, but I'll have to double check.
We have increased the digital subscriptions, things like Sora. We're using Myon for online reading and research and things like that. I know the middle school, we're implementing Sora.
Research databases.
And research. Yes. Our next slide here, not a lot of changes in most of these codes. here, we're showing a decrease in health services, which again, is not the norm, but we had a nurse at St. Thomas, and since St. Thomas closed, we no longer have the salary associated with that nurse. And we also had another retirement of a nurse. Again, the nurse that we hired to replace that retiree was hired at a lower salary. So a little bit of a decrease there. Any questions on any of this?
The attendance, sorry, the attendance line, 2805, it's a small increase, but can you speak quickly to what that is there?
The attendance line is largely salaries of staff that are used to take attendance, largely at the secondary level. So it's just contractual salaries. Our 2820 codes, this is one of those areas where there's some shuffling around salaries, moving salaries into the grants, out of the grants. There's one person where a portion of the salary was paid from the grant. It's now moved entirely into the general fund. There was another staff member who had some CPSE and CSE duties, which was paid out of the special ed fund. As we shifted the responsibilities, we moved the entirety of that salary. It's about 20%. That was in the 2250 code that got moved into the 2820 code. So overall, it's about an 8% increase. It's almost entirely those salary movement. 2825, there's a large increase there. Again, that is also movement of salary. We had one staff member who was budgeted in the 2820 for psychology services that was more appropriately in the social work code. Another salary that was in the grant, out of the grant into the general fund. And we had another staff member who changed lanes on the salary schedule. So that's the reason for those increases there. Any questions? Okay. And then lastly, on this slide here, the increase in our athletics line, it is largely driven by additional fees. We had an increase in the fee for the athletic trainer. We're adding some choreography services for our cheerleading teams and adding at the JV level as well. There's some increase in the fees for officials that we have to hire to work at our games. Some equipment that does need to be repaired or replaced, including we're trying again, and we put this in, we've taken it out. That the divider in the gym at the high school, just having that removed and replaced. There's other things like motors for the baskets, very exciting things. New volleyball system to replace an old volleyball system, things like that.
The nets in there for the kids. The nets in there for the kids.
There are nets. There are nets at GW as well. I did speak to when the SSAC brought that up as we were working, practicing on their presentation. I mentioned to Mr. Dorsack. He said they usually take the nets down for the winter and they put them back up in the spring, so that should happen. We did also talk about they wanted lower hoops for some of the kids. So we had already talked about the solution for that.
Like me.
Yeah. And people like me that aren't so tall. When you can dunk on the lower back.
Vertical challenge is a real thing.
Yeah. And just finally in that code, the interscholastic athletics, there are increases, contractual budget increases in the coaching segment. So are there any questions about any of these? Oh, nothing. Okay. All right, so let's move on and figure out how we're paying for all of this. This is our budgeted revenue going into next year. We are looking at an increase in state aid, a budgeted increase of about $1.3 million. Our property tax levy, the largest source of our revenue, the largest single source, that 2.14% increase, it's about $1 million. Our pilots are going up a little bit. Most of these budgeted revenues are static. There's an increase in the tuition of the districts. That is our foster tuition that we are able to bill back to other districts. We're just moving that number more in line with what we're actually seeing. We're actually reducing our interest income budget to be more in line with the current market rates for interest, which are, I hesitate to even call them interest rates because they are so incredibly low. But the Fed has talked about raising interest rates over the next year, so that may impact the interest that we earn on our account. So we're hopeful there, but not confident at this point. Most of the rest of these codes are the same in terms of fund balance and reserves, mostly the same. We did budget an increase in use of the ERS reserve. That's our employees, the non-teaching staff, the non-instructional staff, just to bring that number closer to what we are anticipating for the expense. Any questions? Just in terms of the tax levy cap, we're going to talk about our calculation of the cap. Just to be clear, this levy cap is neither a cap nor is it 2%. Again, do not believe what you see on the cover of Newsday. They like to put the big fat 2 up on the cover. It's very misleading. Every year I sit at home and I grumble to myself. Nobody listens. There, so I'm talking to myself. This levy limit, it's a limit, it's a threshold really above which we just really need a higher percentage. So we of voters to vote yes. We present a levy within the cap. We need a simple majority. We exceed that. We need a super majority. The 2% is one factor in the larger complex formula. So it's not simply whatever the rate of inflation is, that is our cap. There are these factors as well that are involved. Tax-based growth factor, which is essentially the growth in the taxable property within the district. The allowable growth factor, that is the inflation rate. There's pilots, there's capital tax, capital projects tax levy as well. All of these are part of this formula, which is here. Won't bore you with the details, but it's important to note all of these different factors. Again, it's not just this 2% that comes down from the inflation rate. So we start with the current year's tax levy, we add in the growth, tax-based growth factor, we add and subtract in pilots and capital tax levies. And this 2% shows up here as one factor in the formula. Okay, that's where it is. And then again, even after that, we're taking out pilots, we're adding back in capital tax levies. So it's a complicated formula that brings us to the final number, which is the $48.8 million, which is the 2.14% tax levy increase, which is within the tax levy plan. Any questions about it? In terms of budgeted state aid, this is a breakdown. We are seeing right now in the governor's proposal an increase in foundation aid of about $1 million. The other aids on this list, some of them are based on enrollment, some of them are based on actual expense. So you'll see a decrease in those two excess cost lines. That's actually based on actual expenses that we incurred. So some decreases there. Our transportation aid obviously is going up because our expenses continue to go up. Some of these aids will change year to year based on expenses, based on enrollment, based on changes in actually the formula that is used. They're very complicated. They change year to year based on wealth ratios and things like that. So our overall budgeted state aid increase in budgeted state aid is about $1.1 million.
Foundation aid, when you say it's not funded, is that just in the past and we should expect to get this number, or does it mean might get less than this number because it's not fully funded?
This actually, it's a good question. This is actually a step on the road to fully funding the formula. The state has said they plan to fund it fully by next year. We'll see what happens. Next year, we do expect to receive this. Right now, the state is a bit flush with federal funds, so we anticipate receiving that. This brings us closer to the fully funding of the formula. As I said, they promised to fully fund the formulas by the 23-24 school year, but remains to be seen.
Which was $8 million.
No, the $8 million was what they owe us from the past.
That's
Yeah.
So
We're never getting fully
We're
funded
not,
by that.
we're not getting fully funded for all of the foundation we should have gotten.
Okay.
But they're gonna say, well, if we fully fund the formula this year, you know, you'll get $12 million, but we got dollars years ago, the last year, so we did not receive. Any other questions on this? All right, so all of this, we kind of did the line items. We talked about the revenues. What is all of this going to help fund? It's funding a lot of these initiatives. Some of these are new. Many of them are continuing initiatives that we have implemented over the last few years to, again, in service of our students, to allow them to grow and to be successful here. So we've got a new math and science program, or they're two separate programs that we have rolled out. We will continue to work with those programs. From what I hear, and I'm not in the classroom, but the students have responded incredibly well to these new programs. They actually find some of them fun, science programs, which is great. We're cultivating that love of learning in sciences at a young age. We will continue with our social emotional learning programs. The project-based learning that was mentioned by some of the students in the SSAC, that will continue. We'll continue to use that district-wide. Some career exploration. We had a grant with the town of Hempstead, where we had a couple of our students that were working over the summer. They got paid through the town of Hempstead, and actually were working with us in the central office to get some work experience and to make a little money over the summer. So that was nice. It really helped us out a tremendous amount in the central office. Our new integrated humanities approach, which I will try not to butcher, but I will try to explain. My understanding of that is that what we're trying to do is take a topic and share that topic in terms of the content across different areas within the humanities department. So the example I was given was conflict. That would be the topic, and maybe students in ELA would read works on that topic. As with social studies, kids in the social studies class, they would read materials there, and that work would support each other and reinforce each other across the subject areas. Is that close? Are you close?
That's
All right. All Ms. Riley is going to write more information on that. Some additional programs that we have written out loud, which took place last summer, which we'd like to continue with, where we had some of our elementary students exploring their love of writing. So we were able to create original written stories and then have them published. Our camp invention program, which we're looking to roll out in summer, is STEM-based programs, coding programs, things of that nature that students can participate in over the summer to enhance their interest in those areas.
Quick question, the new math and science programs, those are with the next gen standards mandated by the state, right? Yeah. So we're trying, yeah. That's what I just wanted.
Since they're in front of you.
Your turn on. And accused of being quiet before. First.
In terms of future plans, we will continue to explore new opportunities for college credits for our students through opportunities with Syracuse University, Project Advance, and local universities as well. We have our program, which I'll talk about in a couple of slides, with Nassau Community College and things of that nature. We have Malloy programs as well. Yeah, so we will continue to do that so that we can allow our students, when they enter college, to have some college credits development, some experience with college level work. We will looking to expand the research programs, our award-winning research programs. We're looking to implement the Seal of Civic Readiness, which is similar to the Seal of Illiteracy, in that the students with these programs will have a seal on their diploma. So we could have at this point we have the two seal programs. This program is meant to engage students in civic activities, either in the public or in the student environment. And then we will continue to look to roll out the new phys ed standards that have come down from the state.
What are some of those new standards?
The phys ed standards?
Yeah.
I can't speak to that. I don't know.
I think, Mr. Shred, correct me if I'm wrong, but we went from about like 3 or 4 to 6.
We went from
3 to 6.
That's right. And they've expanded to include nutrition and
We have different skills that are in there, really from grades K through 12. And within those standards, there's multiple standards that are in there. So this summer will be in, end up doing curriculum writing as well.
I think it had to do more with like healthy living, balanced lifestyle, nutrition.
Individual activities, not just team sports, but individual lifelong activities, things of that nature. Thanks.
Again, the budget is helping to support some of our new and continuing partnerships that we have throughout Nassau County, including our NYU Lango Vision Scholar Program, which is seeking to increase diversity in the physician workforce. We had a number of students who were named Vision Scholars this year. We had 8 of them, which is nice. We have several partnerships along the way with Adelphi University, including their residency program, where they send some of their students who are pursuing teaching degrees to get real-world experience in our classrooms, students and teachers. Their Adelphi STEP program, which is a Saturday program of STEM programs for students who are interested in that. We work very closely with representatives from Adelphi on the grants. 21st Century Community Learning Center grant, which if we are awarded that grant, would be a nice amount of money that would help support after-school programs during the year and programs during the summer for both students and families in the district. So we're still waiting to hear back if we have won that grant. We again continuing our participation in the peer mentoring program. The diversity fair with NASPOCES, primary project, these are all ongoing initiatives. And our new for this year that we will continue to next year is the association with Nassau Community College. We're seniors in our high school and go and take classes on the campus of Nassau College and earn college credits while they're also earning credits for high school graduation. So a lot of great things happening for our students, and all of this work that we're doing in the budget that we're supporting and all of these programs leads us into the student achievements, these achievements they are able to achieve, that sentence, based on all the programs and supports that we offer them. So we have award-winning research programs, teams, the Samsung Solve for Tomorrow, winners 2 years now in a row. We've got students in the National American Scholarship Committee students there. We've got essay winners in race racism. We've got art, music, and photography award winners throughout the district. Additionally, we've got athletics awards here as well. We have named School of Excellence by the New York State Public High School Athletic Association for 2 years in a row. What that means is that we've had more than 75%, or at least 75% of our varsity teams that were named student athlete teams, which now we've also, again, obviously what follows from that is we've got our teams that have been named student athlete teams, individual students named scholar athletes as well. I'm sorry, now I keep saying student athlete and scholar in there. We've got hackathon winners. We had a 7th grade, this is my favorite, 7th grade student in a 9th grade math class getting the highest score on the AMT 10 math exam, which is an exam given to 10th graders and 9th graders typically. So kudos to that student. We also had, this is also near and dear to my heart, while I was in middle school playing Frogger, we have a middle school student coding a Frogger game, which was one of the, using Kidoyo, one of the Kidoyo mentors said this game that this student coded was the best coded Frogger game that mentor had seen to that point in time. So,
Can just jump in there?
Sure.
We have 2 Kidoyo mentors. That means that 3 now. 3. Sorry, you're right. 3. They don't just mentor our kids. They create these programs for every district that's involved with Kidoyo. So these kids are actually like teachers of coding.
They go on the Kidoyo system and they look for the students that are
schools, we help them along.
Yeah.
We can work like that.
And also, just, this past weekend, and I'm probably going to get it wrong, so Chris corrected, one of the Guerriere girls placed fifth in New York State and is now recognized nationally in track.
No, and competing this Friday.
I'm sorry?
Competing this Friday in Manhattan.
Oh, she is right. She's going to the Armory, right?
Yes.
And then Jordan DeJesus also was recognized, right?
New 12 scholar athlete, that's our second.
But he also competed in the States.
23rd in the state.
23rd in the state. So it was a big weekend, this past weekend for our track athlete.
Yeah, great stuff, great stuff. This is not everything. These two slides is not everything, and things happened over the weekend that didn't make it into the slide. So again, the budget supporting the programs, which is, ending up with these achievements from our students.
And they're learning what Frogger is, which is important.
Yeah.
It's a good game.
Yeah.
It works pretty well. It's pretty good.
And I competed the game as well as I did when I was in middle school. All right, anyway, that is the end of sort of the content part of the presentation. Our next steps are obviously we wait to see when the state finalizes their budget, whether or not our state aid numbers change. If we do hear anything, we will let the board know. We will know. And then just again, additional dates for upcoming discussions about the budget and then the budget vote on May 17th. That open to any questions you may have.
So I have just a quick question going back to building aid and the decrease in building aid. That's mostly because we've almost completed all the projects for the bond, and otherwise we don't have much work going on anymore other than these short projects.
The building aid actually that's bringing things more in line. That will go up as we complete the projects, the Project C projects. Right now, that number will go up. But that number was adjusted to bring it more in line with what the state is expecting, or what we're expecting the state to pay.
From the state this year. Yeah. Okay. Does anyone else have? So at this time, I'm going to open up for questions from the audience. I'm going to ask for questions from the audience here first. And then I'm going to ask that if you are virtual, you raise your hand and I will call on you to unmute yourself. If you're speaking from the audience virtually, please identify yourself. And please just speak up, because sometimes the audio from here is hard to understand what you're saying. So do we have any questions?
Yes, Barbara Hafner. I have a couple of questions and comments. This sheet, is this available here? This sheet here?
Yes.
Yes. I would make a recommendation that for the virtual audience, that they know where to find this, simply because there was a problem last year and we don't want anybody to think we're not transparent.
It's been on the website since it's been on the website since last week.
Yeah, I know. I know where it is. I found it, but I just, for those of the people that don't go on that website on a regular basis, it might be something to just let them know it's there. Just a suggestion. I did have a question about, you said charter school enrollment was increasing. We know that kids go into charter school and then there's a date and they don't have to get back the money after a certain date if a kid gets sent out of the charter school and back to the public. Do we know if there are any students that's happened to in West Hempstead where the students have enrolled in charter and then have come back after we've already paid?
I'm not aware of that happening.
So we don't have any returnees. Okay. We talked about the library staff and the fact that we had a library and media specialist retire. Are we replacing that middle school librarian with a middle school librarian media specialist?
So we are looking at that position and reimagining it, since research is becoming, and inquiry-based learning is becoming a large component in 21st century education. So we will be replacing, well, you don't want to say replacing, you don't replace people, but we are searching for another colleague or staff member, I should say, a new staff member to join us, so that they can support our teachers in research-based, push-in, instructional type support for our teachers and our students for innovative programs that we're creating.
So we are not replacing that person with a library media specialist?
We are also, yeah, we posted for a librarian. We had minimal applicants come in, and most of those applicants did not have the correct certifications to fulfill that position according to New York State.
Yes, it is a certification, absolutely. As a 7-12 school, you will only need one librarian because it's a library, it's a 7-12 school, is that correct?
I'm not sure I understand. Are you asking if we're taking the books and everything out of the other library?
No, as a 7-12 school, just like you only need one principal, we only need one librarian. Where now we're supposed to have a librarian for the middle school as well as the high school.
I still don't know if I'm catching it. I mean, I think I get what you're saying, but I don't think we're planning to take the library out of the middle school now.
So when the state said that you no longer needed a librarian for the elementary schools, as soon as all of our librarians retired, we never replaced those positions. We no longer have library media specialists in the elementary school. But because we had, it is a requirement at the secondary level. We have middle school, we have a high school.
Okay, now I think I get what you're saying. Required, they only need one librarian, yes,
For a
because it's a 7-12 school.
And
Yes.
that is for come September, 7-12, or
Yes.
come September.
I apologize, I misunderstood.
The other question I had to do with your initiatives, and I couldn't help but notice or hear the high school student talk about project-based learning and how it was good, but it was just as good as direct learning. And they really wanted the ability to have as much direct learning as project-based learning. We have that as part of our continuing initiatives. How much are we spending on these initiatives for professional development, teachers being pulled out of classes for project-based learning? If it's something that the kids are telling us isn't a priority for them.
Well, that's not what the kids said, first of all. The kids said they want both.
Yes, that's what I heard. I heard both.
So
But I'm
that's not a
asking how
priority.
much weight are we putting on the project-based learning? That was my question.
But you said it wasn't a priority, so I want to clarify that for the audience, that that's not what Kimball said. So they want both. They did a survey, wasn't just from Kimball, it was from the entire high school.
I did see
student
that survey.
population.
It was very well done. That was one of my 6th grade students.
Okay, and she's on our SSAC account. So how much are we spending? I don't have the number for project-based learning. Who do we work with this year? No, what,
Well, we worked with our final.
I can't hear you.
We worked with our PE teacher. This past year, we worked with our PE teachers, our music teachers, and some teachers that are new to the district that didn't have the opportunity to previously join in on the previous year's PDs. So any new teachers this year.
and that would be all, that would be training. Right now.
Probably people.
I don't know if you have more, but I'm gonna just let somebody else from the audience ask a question and I'll come back.
Absolutely.
So I'm looking to see if there are any hands up in the audience. Just give me 1 second because I have to scroll a little. Mr. Zelik, would you like to unmute yourself and ask your question?
Sure, thank you. Thanks for the presentation. There seems to be a little echo, so hopefully you can hear. But so on regular school instruction 2110, and sorry, I missed the beginning of the meeting, so I missed it, but it looks like almost a 10% increase over last expense. Does this include the projected reduction in salary of the principal referenced in the last meeting in the middle school? and the 3 other teachers you noted were retiring and not being replaced. I might have missed it, but I thought those line items were still included in the budget, so if you could just go through that, please.
Okay, did you understand what you just said?
Yeah, so
It did break up a little.
you were asking if the principal salary was reflected in there. Principal salary is not reflected in 2110. It's reflected in 2020. And you also mentioned 3 teachers that were retiring that were not being replaced. We did not say anything about not replacing any teachers. I did address that code, the expenses in that code. They do include the retirement of the teachers, a number of teachers in there, but also with replacement, with salaries of teachers, I guess not replacing again, but filling those positions, but at an anticipated lower salary.
Okay, I'm sorry, it's like choppy, but in terms of it wasn't this meeting, it was 2 meetings ago, I think the restructuring meeting with, if it becomes 1 plan versus 2, 1 middle school principal salary would not be included going forward. Is that forecasted? And sorry if it's choppy, I don't know if you can hear me.
Right, we took that.
Oh,
Well,
salaries are budgeted for an assistant principal,
There's,
correct?
yeah, I mean, we're essentially at that point when, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So did you hear what I said, Mr. Zelig? I'm sorry, but the principal salary or approximately principal salary was removed. And though you have to budget for the income of a assistant principal.
Okay. And then, do you have a projected numbers from this current year? I know the year's not over yet, but just the target of what the surplus or reserve amount would roughly be for 2021-22. I know we're not there yet, but do you have any indication of what the numbers will look like?
We don't have any final numbers on that yet.
Okay, and then the last question I had just was on athletics. They're obviously an important component for the students. I did notice, and you mentioned as well, the proposed amount of 1.1 million is about 50% more than expensed in 2021. I know you referenced a bunch of different things, but can you explain just how it will go up over 51% from what was expensed a couple of years ago, and I guess what it's attributed to?
So you're looking at the 2021 school year as your comparison point. I will remind you that 2021 was hybrid learning and COVID. So there were a lot of programs that did not run in 2021. And so we did not incur transportation costs nearly as high for athletics and just in the general athletics code as well. Coaching stipends, things like that was much lower that year because of COVID.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Zelig. I have, oh, all right, whoever that was that just put their hand up, put it back down. So I'm gonna go with, they didn't have a question. Oh, wait, somebody who's just logged on as guest keeps putting up their hand. If you have a question, please unmute yourself and identify yourself and ask your question.
Hi, that might be me. Moshe Seawold here. How are you? Thank you very much for the presentation. So I have just a general question. In terms of overall budgeting for services that are outside of the public school, whether that be whether that be charter schools, whether that be whatever obligations we have to Hank, obviously St. Thomas in the past, do we have a line item basically that gives what we're budgeting for the external services?
No, because it depends on the external service. There would not be one, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Press, there would not be one individual line for external services, correct?
That is correct. We do, because the services that we provide for out of district vary from teacher services to special ed. Each one of those, transportation, textbooks,
Health services.
Health services, those are all within their, they're within different function codes. So the function codes in the presentation, the 2815 or 5540 for transportation services, 2815 for the nurses, there's a 2110 for textbooks that we pay for the non-public schools. So there's no one line that accounts for everything that's out of district.
Okay, thank you. Just one question. Can someone please, and I apologize if, if this has been mentioned, what is a library media specialist? And how does it pertain between the new 7 to 12, I guess, school that's gonna, that's looking to take place?
A library media specialist is the certification that New York State requires that quote unquote the typical librarian would have, because the roles of librarians have changed in schools to include components of media, research, and online technologies. And so therefore that certification area has expanded to become a library media specialist.
Would that be considered a salary?
I'm sorry?
It's a staff member, so yes, it would be a salary.
Okay, and if we're on the 7 to 12, then do we still need the middle school, one for the middle school and one for the high school?
Well, as Mrs. Hafner had asked earlier, the question was, are we required to have one in both buildings? Well, I shouldn't say both buildings, but are we required to have two? Because we would be a 7-12 building. We are not required to have two. And Ms. Riley explained how they were revamping the position into a research position. Well, adjusting it more towards the research.
Okay. One last question. So you mentioned in the beginning of the slides that one of the big increases was health insurance, which I believe was going up towards an increase of about $300,000. Can you please tell me which line item that falls under?
That was last week's presentation. I believe it's 9060.
That is
68.
9060. Okay. All right. I see that. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Siri that you see that number. I'm saying.
Spent a lot of time.
Nice shirt, by the way. Okay, do we have any other questions? If you could just remute yourself, sir. I just don't want you to, there you go, thank you. I don't see any other hands up in the virtual audience, although wait, maybe I do. Nope, that's still you. Do we have any questions back here in the room?
Yeah, just one more. Can you hear me?
Go ahead, Mr. Zeller.
Sure. So thank you for the answer on the athletics. So that number you mentioned was 2021, but the 2019-20 expenditures on athletics was 708,540. So my understanding is that was a normal year. So 708,540 versus the proposed budget of 1.1 million. Can you see the difference?
I'd have to go back and look at what was included in 1920. 2021 obviously would have been higher than what we're showing here. I know we have, there's been stipend increases over those years for the coaches. I think we've added. I don't know if we've added. No.
There's been a big increase for officials.
Yeah, officials, right, there's been increases there. Yeah, I mean, I can certainly go back and look at that.
Yeah, thank you. It's just 708 to 1.1 million, so that's a pretty big difference.
Because there was no sports that year. 1920, all sports were canceled.
He went back. Oh, yeah, but 19 went back. We did, but he went back to 1920. We were closed from
March to 20 of this
The
whole
whole
year.
spring season was canceled.
That's true.
2020.
Yeah.
So that's why
So
2019.
that'd be a part of it too. Spring sports would have been canceled at that point.
Completely canceled.
I think there might have been 3 days of practice, just to be totally accurate, before that shut down.
Yeah. Okay, so do we have any other questions here in the audience? Okay, I'm gonna give you guys in the virtual audience one more chance to raise your hand if you have a question. And with that being said, I'm going to thank Mr. Press for all his hard work and the rest of central office and all of our directors and administrators for all their hard work in helping to create this budget. At this point today, without any further information from the state, I don't anticipate us coming back here on the 22nd for another budget meeting. However, ask me next week at our regular business meeting and I might change that answer. So we're hoping, I will tell you that we do have a meeting next week with Senator Kaminsky. And I do hope that in the future, not unlike prior years, we have been able to get the legislators and the senators to kind of funnel a little bit of extra money our way. It seems to be how it goes. The state says you're going to get this. They go back and say, well, maybe we'll give you this much more. So we are hoping that that does happen. So maybe these numbers might change. Again, remember everybody that these are preliminary numbers. We hope to see you here next week at our regular business meeting on the 15th. Same bat time, same bat channel, 7:30 here in the video conference room. Oh, excuse me, I'm sorry. We do have one quick message from Mr. Raymond. I have to ask you about this, and I have to give you back.
Just hit the next slide, don't you? Just want to give some brief updates on protocols, which we're all really aware of, but just to make sure we're all on the same page. New guidance came out on March 1st. So this information replaces any previous information in our school reopening plan. Isolation and quarantine protocols will remain the same. Nothing has changed there from New York State Department of Health. Masking, as you know, is now optional in the school setting. With regards to one more time. With regards to masking, if you come back from isolation, you still need to mask on days 6 through 10. It's regardless of vaccination status, and it's recommended that you do testing on day 5. As you know, we sent home test kits prior to the break. Probably within the next week, we'll be sending another round of test kits home as well. And just to be on the same page, masking is not required. It's optional on buses or vans, school vans as well. Classroom lunchroom and learning spaces are going to begin to return to pre-pandemic settings. That will be determined by building administration within the next few days. Okay. And indoor permits, I thought Ms. Magarachi was going to be here, but I will give her a call tomorrow. And to anyone, we're accepting all indoor permits from this point forward. So basically in a nutshell, we were trying to return to pre-pandemic standards whenever possible, but of course, I do not wear a mask here tonight. We tend to wear masks in school for the children to make sure everyone's comfortable. It's their choice, everyone's choice to whether wear a mask or not wear a mask. That's up to them. We respect everyone's choices and continue to move forward. Our current protocol rates, our COVID rate is 0.1%. We have one staff member who has a COVID at this time, and that's it. So we are hopeful that continues in that fashion, and we look forward to moving on to bigger and better things.
Thank you very much. Anybody have a question about the protocols, since we just did that? Okay, so I want to say Thanks, Sid, for being so well behaved back there. And, at this time, I need a motion from the board to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Motion passes. Have a good night, everybody. Thank you for joining us.